So I'm going to start with reading for the day. Before I start, I want to get into sort of this theory that I have about how we're doing life that isn't working well for us. And one reason I'm coming on here looking a little more natural. So I feel like we put this face on with the world. It's going to be my hand up here, right? This is like the persona we have. And so often our physical presentation has to do with that. My hair's perfect, my makeup's perfect, my clothes, my personality, I'm on. We have an on position, and that's this sort of persona we have. And then we have our real self like hiding back here, really desperate for love. And there's like a big curtain in between the two. And we really want to feel seen and heard. But all we're presenting to the world is this. So this is all the world can see and hear. But yet there's a certain element of us that wants to feel seen and heard back here. And resentment can even build that no one's seeing or hearing me. But yet this is all I'm presenting to the world. And we want people to come and peek behind our curtain. But it's not anyone's job to peek behind our curtain. It's our job to sort of bring ourselves together, to bring the real self and our persona together, like rip down the curtain. It's a little Jesus metaphor there for you. And come out and bring ourselves together, our whole person, our whole process, our spirituality, our mentality, our emotionality, our physicality, and our vulnerability and authenticity. You know, some folks aren't going to like looking natural on camera. We like it when people put on a show or a face for us because that's what we're doing for the world. And there's something about just saying, you know what, we get to be whole people. And that includes good things, bad things, ugly things, sad things, awesome things, pretty things. It's all of it. And that's one big target of what I'm bringing to you here. And interestingly, I'm also bringing a lot of different types of spirituality and thought processes that I believe over time, we're going to bring these together to full cohesion, where we're going to see a message of one loving force, one loving God that we can trust in. And if the word God doesn't work for you, I totally understand. The word God used to make the hair stand up on my body. I used to be so anti that word because of what had happened to me when I was younger. I've made peace with it now, and I do plan to use it. But please, if it offends you, please just replace it with a word like source or universe that works for you. Please understand I'm not speaking in a specific religion, but about all religions. And the same thing that they speak to, which is this force, not a dude sitting in the sky, but more this loving force that just has us. And that we exist in an environment of well-being and love, and that everything good is coming to us and everything is working out as long as we believe it. This is about faith and trust as a foundation for everything else that's going to come forward. And it takes a lot of faith and trust to move past our curtain and be willing to come out. And oftentimes we can't really feel like we can't trust the world and other people. But that's why we have to have this foundational trust in all that is, this sort of foundation of love that's holding everything. And then I don't really have to worry about trusting other people. I think that will be revealed over time as long as I know that something good has us and has me. That's really the establishment of trust and foundation. So anyway, I'm going to move forward with that sort of grounding concept. First, I'll start with my flip book for today's readings. I don't have really one put together. I'm just going to do a couple devotionals and see how they work. Okay, new process. Creation by default, this is from Abraham. When you're deliberately deciding that you want a thing and are giving your conscious, deliberate attention to it, that is creation at its best. But when you're giving thought to that which you do not want, but nevertheless creating it, that is creation by default. More of you creating by default rather than by conscious and deliberate intent. And it is our desire that we may stimulate your thoughts as you read these words, to the point of understanding how it is that this creating is occurring. And as you understand the process by which you are creating, then you will have more possibility of being in deliberate control of your current life situation. So this goes into focus. It's interesting, at the conference they didn't really say anything specific like that, but at the same time, they're constantly dancing around this idea that, you know, focusing on love and a God of love, and exactly what I'm talking about, this foundation of trust, brings about massive changes in people that can be showed by studies and science. Less depression, less mortality, all the bad things are way reduced when people are focused on good things. And I think that's really because we're creating our own reality, or they don't see that, but this is a big point of connection. So I'm going to jump into this book, Bounce, I did not attend her workshop. Thankfully now I'll have the recording, but my mom did and said it was really good, but it's about resiliency. So this is a 60-day devotional to jumpstart your resilience. It's going to be some biblical stuff in here. We'll unpack that. But how important it is in life to be able to bounce. And I love that idea. You know, I kind of crashed and burned a lot, and I'm all about bouncing now. So let's start with number 1. See what she has to say. I have no idea. It's called Normalize the Pain, day 1. Works for me. Until 2020, we were generally well insulated from pain in America. I wasn't, but I see a lot of people were. So insulated that it's often hard for us to remember that pain is a normal part of the human condition. I was blessed to have lots of pain before 2020. If anything, my pain has lessened since then, but I'm opposite of the world, so I'm a little strange that way. But, you know, I think when you don't have pain or insulated from pain, you do have your tolerance go down. So the truth is that occasional symptoms of sadness, weariness, anxiety, and feeling overwhelmed are a normal part of the human experience. Unfortunately, due to our attempts to insulate ourselves from pain, we shame ourselves when we experience any kind of distress. How true is that for us? We think we're supposed to be thriving all the time, and if we're not, we feel bad about it. This shame causes us to think we're different from everyone else and keeps us stuck in our pain. I mean, here we go, right? The face, I gotta act like I'm happy all the time. If I'm not doing well, I'm gonna hide it behind the curtain and not let anybody know because I'm supposed to be doing better. Put on my happy face, yeah. Right? And then the pain gets worse, the void gets bigger between our real self and our persona. Wise King Solomon normalized the existence of personal struggle. He wrote, "For everything there is a season, and a time for every matter under heaven." Ecclesiastes 3:1. And that is nice to think about a season. The Apostle Paul was featured in Luke's account of the early church in Acts, and Paul wrote many of the letters to the churches. Despite his incredible strengths, he also apparently acknowledged a chronic, unidentified struggle. In this quote, "A thorn was given me in the flesh, a messenger of Satan to harass me, to keep me from becoming conceited. 3 times I pleaded with the Lord about this, that it should leave me, but he said to me, 'My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness.'" That's fascinating. We'll have to unpack that another day. I keep saying that, sorry, unpack that. But this quote, "A thorn was given me in the flesh." I wonder if he was just talking about the flesh being the thorn. And then if it says a messenger of Satan, well, if we name Satan Satan, which is the Kabbalist version of ego, which I'll pull that book out another day. Ego is the idea that we are only a human body. He could be saying a messenger of ego to harass me, to keep me from being conceited. But I don't know. 3 times I pleaded, okay, that it should leave me. But he said, "My power is made perfect in weakness." Maybe he just meant his flesh, and God was like, well, my power can be great in flesh as well, in the weakness of being human. But interesting. King Solomon was not protected from pain. Paul was not protected from pain. Neither am I, and neither are you. When we embrace the reality that trials and suffering are normal on this side of heaven, we're less inclined to feel we must hide our pain with a fabricated smile. Ha! I hadn't read that, and I said the same thing a minute ago. All right. It says, ponder that. Today we normalize the universal experience of suffering and struggle. That's our goal for today. Reflect on respected historical or biblical leaders who wrestled in ways similar to yours. Consider acquaintances, neighbors, or mentors who have walked through difficult trials. I don't know anyone. I think Brene Brown says it best when she says nobody rides the life bus for free, right? Consider friends or family members who have endured painful challenges. Allow their humanity to remind you of yours and their experience of pain to normalize yours. Permit yourself to be honest about your tough season. Verses of hope. For everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up what is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together. It's a great song I knew once, right? Turn, turn, turn. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to cast away, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. Ecclesiastes 3, 1 through 8. I like this idea that's a time for everything, and Abraham is even talking about that, right? Creation by default. We don't want to focus or think about the things we don't want. We want to think about the things we do want. But there's going to be contrast. Contrast is part of it. The Holy Spirit teaches through contrast. The Course in Miracles says, you have to have both. Because if you're insulated from one, you don't have the full experience, the richness, and you don't define what you want. Now, if you add the purpose behind of what Abraham teaches us, that you're defining what you want and what you're asking for through the pain and struggle. So in other words, you're creating the life you want when you're having the life you don't. It makes it more purposeful. And it's about understanding how to balance, right? How to have the contrast and go, okay, well, this is helping me define something I want. Don't get too wrapped up in it. Just say, this is part of it. Take some of the weight off of it and just lightly experiencing it. Well, this is it today. And tomorrow I'll feel better. Or next month, or next year, and not take it quite as seriously. So she has a prayer here for us. Let's see how that works. My prayer for you today. God, I pray for my friends who are reading this devotion today. Remind them that suffering is a normal part of the human condition. Validate their season of pain. Remind them of other heroes of the scriptures who experienced significant distress, hardship, betrayal, physical ailments and attacks, heroes who sometimes felt defeated, and this is in every holy book, who experienced doubt, discouragement, and depression, who were sometimes afraid, mad, or deeply saddened, who experienced trauma. Thank you for the lives of people like David, Esther, Job, Peter, Hannah, and Paul, people just like us who faced unthinkable difficulties and endured through challenging seasons. People who demonstrated great faith while also acknowledging great distress. It doesn't have to be one or the other. Thank you especially for Jesus, who ran toward his distress so that we would have a place to run in ours. Father, encourage my friends with hope today as you remind them that this is a season. There will be a better, more pleasant seasons to come. Soon a smile will become easier. They'll breathe lighter again. The heaviness will be lifted. Their face will brighten once more. We thank you for the eternal hope and our eventual eternal season of glory with you. Until then, help us manage our painful seasons faithfully and prepare us for a bounce forward on this side of heaven. I think heaven can be here. Hell or heaven can be on earth. Heaven's definitely on the other side, but I want some heaven here. And it requires the ability to bounce. And then it has some questions. I guess I'll have to start doing this, but what is your typical response to painful seasons in your life? What strategy have you used to insulate yourself from emotional pain, minimizing the pain, excusing people who hurt you, distracting yourself so you don't feel, etc.? Okay. See what Emmet has to say. Yeah, I chew snacks on camera when I talk. Okay. September 19th, successful concentration it has here. Interesting. I do not give exercises. This is Emmet Fox, by the way. Metaphysical, biblical teacher. I do not give exercises to develop concentration. Concentration on what you are doing at any time. That is the best exercise I know. Focus and presence he's getting at. I remember when I was a boy, about 12 years old, somebody gave me a perfect peach of a jackknife. It probably weighed 1/4 pound, and there was a little saw in it, a little screwdriver, a corkscrew, a thing for getting stones out of horses' hooves, and several blades. I carried it for about a year, thinking how handy it would be for certain cases that never came up, but it never lost its interest. I could always find when I was bored new interest when I took out the jackknife. If you make your search for God your jackknife in that sense, you will get your concentration and you will get your success. Thus will I bless thee while I live and meditate on thee in the night watches. I love that he's pointing at this idea that we don't have to have a defined idea of God. It's about being willing to search for God. It's about being willing to search for your source of trust. I'm not saying it's going to be in any specific place. We all have to find our own. You know, one of the beautiful things about the 12 steps when you walk in is like, you need a higher power to help you with your problems. Those are the first 3 steps. And it doesn't matter what you believe in. I had to make some kind of goddess I defined because I needed it to be so different than the traditional idea of God. Some people make it a doorknob, which I never really understood. Some people make it the group. But whatever it is, that you can have any idea that you want, but you need an idea for you that works, that this is all meaningful, that our pain and suffering is purposeful, that it's totally normal, but not because someone is punishing you, but because it's part of the process of becoming. And in order to find the life you really want and be who you really want and have the life that you really want, it gets to contain things you don't want. Otherwise, how do you know what you do want? And it's really just that simple. It doesn't need to be about shame. It doesn't need to be about upset. Only if we stay there and we decide that this is all that's true for us and that nobody really loves us and that there's really no hope. Humorously, this conference was called No Hope, now that I say that, but K-N-O-W, so you get to know hope. But only when you get stuck there is that a problem, really. We all go through these flows, and to become great, you have to be willing to go there and feel the pain and really get in there and realize that this is a season and get everything you can out of that season, because soon it's going to be a different season and you won't be there as long as you allow yourself to bounce up. And I love this idea of deep concentration on God. What do I believe? Where is God and in what that I think? And where can I establish trust that something loving and good is out there holding this whole world, this whole system, every life equally with as much love, and that includes you. And we get to be resilient and not victims, but realizing that we're overcomers, we're strivers, we're thrivers. And it doesn't matter how far down you've gone. You can always bounce up. In fact, the farther down you've gone, the higher you're going to bounce. Anyway, I think that's it. Have a wonderful day.